What's going on, guys? The Comics Kid 2099 here. Welcome to day 133 of the 365-day graphic novel review challenge. Today, I'm going to talk to you about another Spider-Man book. I've been doing that for the last few days. Today, I will be talking to you about Superior Spider-Man, Volume 1. This is My Own Worst Enemy by Dan Slott, Ryan Stegman, and I know I'm going to have problems saying this name, so I apologize in advance, Giuseppe Camuncoli. This is the first 5 issues of the ongoing Superior Spider-Man series, which, if you watched my video yesterday, the premise of this series is that Dr. Octopus switched minds with Peter Parker, so now Spider-Man has Dr. Octopus's mind, but he has Peter Parker's memories, and so he is trying to be a better Spider-Man than Peter Parker was. He made a vow to Peter as he was dying that he would protect Peter's loved ones and he would continue being Spider-Man. But the key is he is not the same Spider-Man as Peter Parker. He is going to do it his own way. He is basically going to be Spider-Man, but he's going to do it using techniques that he would normally use as a master planning criminal. And that's a very interesting premise. I really like the idea of Dr. Octopus still retaining some of his personality traits and using those traits in his life as Spider-Man, but also retaining some of Peter's traits because he has some of Peter's memories. And we get a little bit of that set up at the end of the Amazing Spider-Man Dying Wish storyline. But here, one thing I really don't like is that at the end of the first issue, we find out that it's not actually Dr. Octopus trying to be a better Spider-Man, it's Peter Parker's ghost forcing Dr. Octopus to be a better Spider-Man. There's one point here where Dr. Octopus is fighting some bad guys, and then we see a ghost limb reach out and grab Dr. Octopus's hand to prevent him from killing these guys, and it's Peter's ghost, and he basically says, I'm going to be on you like glue, I'm not going to let you do anything that I wouldn't want to do. And I don't like that. I think the reason that they did it is because they realized that even with Dr. Octopus being more of a good guy here than he normally is, this series still needed a moral compass to kind of tell us that what Dr. Octopus is doing is not necessarily good, even though he's doing good guy related things. The problem is, I don't want to see Peter Parker anymore. Once you've killed him off and you've told me that Dr. Octopus is going to use Peter Parker's memories to try and be a better Spider-Man, that's what I want to see. I don't want to see Peter's ghost basically doing nothing. After the first issue where he stops Dr. Octopus from killing a guy, he's basically just sitting on the sidelines yelling at the players who he thinks aren't doing a good enough job in the game. And that's not interesting. I don't want to see an inactive ghost character who's not able to contribute to the story in any way. Now, other than that, there are some really good things about this book. My favorite issue here is the one where Dr. Octopus, as Spider-Man, fights the Vulture, because we get to see that Peter sees the Vulture in a very different way than Dr. Octopus did. Dr. Octopus considered the Vulture to be his friend. Even though they were bad guys and they did bad things, they also were real human beings, and we get to see a flashback from early in Spider-Man's career where the Vulture and Dr. Octopus were becoming friends with each other, and the Vulture was saying that all he really cared about was getting that one big score so that he could retire. And then Dr. Octopus, as Spider-Man, he wants to help the Vulture get that, and then he realizes that because he's now Spider-Man, the Vulture, he hates Spider-Man, and he does not act like the same guy that Dr. Octopus knew. And that's a really interesting issue. I really like seeing that. We also get to see Carly Cooper. She is investigating Spider-Man slash Peter Parker. That's a character I'm not familiar with. I'm sure that she's one that Dan Slott created, but she is a police officer that Peter had a relationship once, and when Peter was in Dr. Octopus's body before he died, he told Carly that Dr. Octopus had switched their brains, and she didn't believe him, but now she's starting to think that maybe there's something to that, and so we're getting to see a little bit of development on that subplot, but not much happens there in this particular book. We are also introduced to a new character who goes to Empire State University, I think, and that happens when Dr. Octopus realizes that Peter Parker never actually got his doctorate, and so he wants to complete Peter's doctorate for him, which is a really weird thing, I guess because it's getting in the way of his own ego, and then he meets a fellow student named Anna Maria, I think is her name, and you can kind of tell that there's a little bit of friction going on there, not necessarily in a bad way, kind of romantic tension, if you will, and that's interesting to see, because Dr. Octopus, even though he is a bad guy, like I already said, he still feels like a real person. He still has real feelings for May Parker, and it's very interesting to see him, even though he is an arrogant jerk to most everyone in this series, it's still interesting getting to see him have real human emotions for other people. And we also get to see him dealing with Peter Parker's life, and as Peter thinks, he's basically destroying Peter's life, but in reality, he's trying to put away Peter's life while also trying to build a new life for himself as Peter. There's a lot of really interesting stuff here. I know a lot of people were really upset whenever Dan Slott killed off Peter Parker and brought Dr. Octopus in as the new Superior Spider-Man. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. That's happened a lot of times where a superhero is temporarily replaced by a new, darker superhero. That happened with Nightfall, with Batman in the 90s. It happened with Wonder Woman in the 90s with Artemis. It sort of happened with Green Lantern with Guy Gardner. It kind of sort of happened with Superman and the death of Superman, with the reign of the Superman. So it's happened to a lot of other superheroes before. Captain America had U.S. Agent, who was a little bit of a grittier version of Captain America. So as long as you go into this knowing full well that this is not the permanent status quo and that eventually your Peter Parker will be back, then I think a lot of people would really enjoy this series. I really enjoyed this. I don't have any of the other volumes of the series, which is kind of disappointing. I got this one from my library. But reading this, I think that I might enjoy reading this entire series. I found Dr. Octopus as the protagonist of the book to be very interesting, and I would really like to see more of this. Really, my only downside of this is that we get to see Peter Parker's ghost floating around throughout the entire book, basically doing nothing. That's basically my one problem with the whole book. But I really enjoyed Superior Spider-Man, my own worst enemy. I hope that you guys liked this video, and if you did, be sure to like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I will be back tomorrow with a different video. In the meantime, you guys have a great rest of the day. Catch you later.